Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be looking back at Friday the 13th on the NES. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this game. On the one hand, I've got a lot of fond memories of it, and on the other, it's not really a great game. So this is a pretty ambitious game, actually. There's a lot going on here. They tried to do a bunch of things, but unfortunately they just never really did any of them well. Once you get rid of the rock, the combat's not terrible, but then when you fight Jason, you realize just how ill-equipped you actually are, unless you're able to kind of decipher some things and figure out a bunch of pretty cryptic codes. So most of this involves going into cabins and whatnot. In those cabins, you usually have to light a fireplace, and it can be a little hard if you just pick this up to figure out which fireplaces you're supposed to actually light, or which cabins have the fireplaces. It's usually the bigger ones on the map screen, but you're not going to find that right away, so you'll spend a lot of time just going in and out of these places. And then, of course, the Jason alarm goes off, and you have to run to the cabins around the lake. And you don't even get a good walking scene like this. But then you get into the cabin, you save the person who Jason was after, and you eventually find Jason. And that's when it kind of feels like you're getting shot in the ass with a slingshot. It was one of those weird things where I didn't know whether the controls were broke, whether the controller was broke, or whether it was me. I'd like to tend that it was my fault. And that death scene kind of sums up how I felt the first time I played this game. Just shot in the eye with a spear gun by a crazy guy in a hockey mask. But anyway, this game does have kind of a special place in my heart. It was one that my friends rented a lot, and I never figured it out. I don't think any of them ever figured it out either. But yeah, it's just kind of weird because you have Jason and he's murdering children for some weird reason, which he never really does. It feels very weird, and the game constantly tries to stop you from doing what you're doing. And of course Jason shows up, you try to fight him off as best you can, and then eventually at some point, I'm guessing once all the children die, then he comes after you more often. It's one of those games that just the nostalgia of it makes me want to come back and play it. Not really the quality of the game at all, but just the memories of playing it with a couple of my friends. And just, turning it on for an hour or so, and then shutting the thing off and going back outside and playing. But that's just kind of how I feel. It does have kind of a fun day-night cycle to it, and it does have a pretty big map, like much bigger than the actual camp scenes that I ever really remember in Friday the 13th. They're usually confined to just a few cabins and whatnot. And then, of course, like the lake and a little area around Jason, until they get to Manhattan. They obviously had to figure out a few enemies just to toss in here, so you've got zombies, which I guess kind of fits, since Jason eventually becomes a zombie. Dogs attack you, so maybe that's a reference to Muffin. I don't know. There's just a lot of weird stuff. I almost feel like they could have made a much better game if they had scaled down the overall design and really worked out what they wanted to do. Like, essentially just getting rid of the children, because Friday the 13th never takes place during, like, an active camp season. So just having them there seems a little weird to me. But, that's just one criticism. I'm sure in the design, it meant something, but to me it just feels weird that they're there. And then having the death scenes and everything kind of feels a little lackluster. Because when you play, or at least when you watch the movies, at least that's what I'm watching for, are the death scenes. And in this one, you don't really get that. You get a lot of confusing bullshit. You have basically like a party of 6, you've got a bunch of items, and you kind of try to figure things out, and your end goal is killing Jason. But most of the time I just died, and unfortunately I wasn't met with a scene like this when I died. Probably because the NES couldn't do that. But it would have made the game a lot more interesting. You walk around, try to figure out what's going on, Jason shows up out of nowhere, and just goes after you with a machete. And, if you beat him, great, but if you don't, you get a scene like this. Which is probably why I liked the PS4 game, or at least the more modern version of Friday the 13th, where they incorporated a lot of those death scenes, and you didn't have to jump around here looking for gummy berry juice, or, random keys, or a lighter, and you didn't have to find clues that lie to you about what you're supposed to do. It's just a very strange game. You find one clue and it tells you, hey, get the torch, and you can use that to light the fireplaces. But it's wrong. It's just not right. And it just makes me wish there was something like this in the game. Have I creeped you guys out enough with all the random death scenes? Don't worry, there's only a few more. I'm not joking about that, there are a few more in here. Anyway, yeah, there's just so much they could have cut out of this and made it a lot better. It's just very strange, and one of those things that I just remember for being very cryptic and confusing. As much as I rag on it, I do like the sort of cartoonish graphics in this, because it feels less dangerous than what it really is. The controls I just absolutely hate. The fact that, you are going on kind of an adventure, you're trying to find different stuff, you've got a pretty decent goal on what you're trying to do. That stuff's all fine, I don't know, there's just something weird about it that kind of bugs me more than it really should. We'll say this though, as weird as it is, this game made me want to watch the actual movies. Not because I thought the game reflected the movies at all, but this was something that I had always heard about. And getting to play this and being confused by it made me want to actually, go and see these different films. It's one of the things that made me into a horror fan. That and my crazy dad showing me, I think it was Night of the Living Dead when I was 5. But that aside from the point, it is one of those games that it's fun, but I don't really understand why it's fun, because it's not a good game. It's pretty confusing, as I've mentioned probably way too many times. And it's not a game that I'm even remotely good at, and it doesn't match up with what's going on in the movies at all, but it's still fun for one of those early attempts to, for whatever reason, take an R-rated game and turn it into an actual NES game. Sorry, an R-rated movie and turn it into an NES game. I have no idea what Nintendo's weird fetish with that was, but they did it a lot with taking an R-rated movie and turning it into a game. I will say this, this game reminds me more of Sleepaway Camp than Friday the 13th, what with the, active camp going on and all of the campers actually getting killed by Jason and whatnot. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I know this one was a little weird, but yeah, just let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a great October, everybody.